Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jaded for episode 10. That's right, double digits of Want to Buy Diablo 3. And for this special episode, we have a special guest on the show, Jay Wilson. Jay, how's it going? Jay? Huh. Seemed to have lost his Skype call, so we're just gonna move on. At least one person probably did a spit take. No, but getting into the show, since there isn't a ton of news to speak of, I came up with some cool topics to talk about, and it's going to be based around the loot system a bit. The only news to really come out is Blizzard confirmed that the loot system really isn't going to change when you go from single player to co-op. So anywhere from 1 to 4 people, you're still going to get the same drops on a personal level. And for those people who don't know, the way the loot system works is you kill a mob and you get loot that drops specifically that only you can see in the game. So all 4 people will get loot that they only see. And so that way it's not battle of who clicks the loot fastest after the boss dies. And I never really spoke about that mechanic specifically, but I'm a huge fan of that. I think that's amazing for Diablo. I think that's really awesome. But what they said was, no matter if you go from 1 person to 4, the loot will stay the same. And the way people are perceiving this is, why do co-op? Why, bring your friends in if you're just gonna get the same loot anyways? Since monsters get harder and all that. But actuality, if you think about it, in Diablo 2, when you brought more people in, the loot didn't double. Say if you brought 1 more person in, the loot never doubled. It did scale up a little bit, but Bale never dropped twice as much stuff or 8 times as much stuff. So it's actually kind of like a boost in disguise compared to what Diablo 2 had. And I think players kind of don't see that at first glance. They just see, oh, well, why have my friends if the loot or the XP doesn't get better? But the way they see it is you're going to be killing mobs faster as a group. And I can definitely see that. Everybody's giving each other buffs and taking the damage and able to pull back a bit and let your friends go in if you're taking too much heat. So that's the way that's going to work, and that's all the news we got. So working off of that, this got me thinking about hardcore, and specifically the PvP section of it. So, thinking back to Diablo 2 and why hardcore was so awesome, was you got to loot corpses, and there was that big reward for killing somebody. That big grand payoff that a lot of games don't have, that's kind of extreme in nowadays games, to get just like all these items at once for just killing someone. So my question is, and maybe I'll have to try to get a response from Blizzard on this, how is the PvP loot system gonna work? So you're in arena, and everybody knows in hardcore now that when you die in arena, you're dead for good. So how are the items going to be distributed? And will the opposing team get, all of them? Or the people who are left standing get all of them? Including your dead friends? Like, how is that going to play out? I'm really curious on this, because I think it's an area that hasn't been discussed a lot and hasn't been brought up to the attention, or maybe Blizzard just isn't ready to talk about it because it's not finalized. But I'm really curious about it, because I was thinking about it for a while, and I think the one way that I saw as being obvious is the winning team gets the opponent's loot, but like not a lot of it. So you only get like a portion of it, and it's randomized. So you only get like, say, 3 items or something from each player that died, or however they do it, but only have a small portion of it and only and have it be random. And the reason for this, I was thinking, is it stops exploiting, and it stops the ability to game the system. You never know what you're going to get off the opposing team, so you can never like set up duels with your friends so that they get all your loot and you never really lose anything but the time investment in leveling. Or have it also be like a huge payout, just doing arena over doing PvE in hardcore, You're going to get way more doing arena, because arena is going to end like, within like 5 minutes or less. So you're going to get all these items constantly, which I don't think they want. But it definitely does incentivize people to go into arena, which I think is a big deal. And I think really makes that system and that way of playing the game much more entertaining, as well as devastating, for people who die, which has always been a good thing when it comes to hardcore mode for Diablo. So if there's not this sort of loot mechanic in hardcore, I think the draw to it will be not as intense, because you're really risking more than you're going to gain. But if there's that chance that you're going to gain something really awesome from opposing players, I think that's going to add so much incentive to really make this a unique experience and something people will be happy with. Because Blizzard basically said that they don't want loot to be a big draw for Arena, this has me worried, but they hadn't really specifically talked about the hardcore stuff. They said that, they didn't want people to gain items off of PvP. They didn't want it to be like, two separate sort of... I mean, they wanted to split up the people who didn't want to PvP to, allow them not to PvP if they don't want to, but they didn't want to split the game like completely so that PvPers could just go PvP and didn't have to play the actual game. So it makes me wonder what type of rewards Blizzard has in mind for just normal Arena. I hope it's more than just titles or achievements. That stuff's always been kind of shallow to me, and it doesn't really drive me to do Arena. So if there is this side of the hardcore Arena, I think I'll definitely check it out and pursue it, even if it's just to die once and call it good. But that being said, it really makes me hope that there's a sort of practice mode within the hardcore side, because you have all this anticipation, all this character development, and all this time put into your character, and then just to see it get killed in 5 minutes or something because your friend didn't execute what you guys wanted, or maybe you just didn't execute what you wanted and you ended up dying for your own mistake. I think there needs to be a sort of practice mode within the game where you can go in and even in hardcore where you could just sort of fake fight and learn the mechanics of your class, really nail down your team synergy and all that. And that would sort of also give people the courage to actually do Arena. If you think you're good at it and you think you are ready, I think that's gonna incentivize it also. So I had seen this thread on a random forum, I can't remember which it was, but someone had talked about gambling for PvP, and I thought this was kind of a very suitable thing for Diablo, and I think it could add a lot to the game. Blizzard has never talked about it, so obviously this is just a feature that I think would be cool. So here's what the guy had to say and kind of my own thoughts on this. Basically, he wanted gambling and dueling to kind of combine, where you could put up an item or put up money and then you go duel and winner takes all, or some sort of tournament setting where it's a few rounds and then the winner takes best of 3, but in a system where the game controls it and you're not relying on the guy to pony up the money. And I think they could apply this to the Arena system in the same way that Call of Duty recently did with Black Ops, where they did the wager matches. I thought those were really brilliant, and while I didn't like Call of Duty, I thought that was probably some of the better stuff that came out of that game, in terms of taking this idea of gambling online with your COD points at the time, but in Diablo 3 it'd obviously be gold, and then saying here's what I'm willing to put up, can you match it? Or going into specific games where the gold is set at a certain point and then you battle for the money. I think that would be really awesome, and possibly add a new dimension to the Arena where it's more player based and kind of drama based. Where I could see this failing is not having a cap on the gold limit. So see, this is where it kind of gets sketchy, is if they don't cap it and it just however much gold you're willing to bet, you bet, it could be fine. But I could see people just becoming insanely rich over a few wins and over a short amount of time. So they would either have to cap it or scale it as time goes on, because people are going to get more and more rich and want to gamble more and more. But without going too in depth with that, because it's not been announced or anything, I just thought it was a cool idea that someone had come up with that I wanted to share with you guys. So yeah, that's going to do it for me this episode. Give me your thoughts on hardcore PvP loot, and if you think this is a good thing or if it's a bad thing, or, you know, if you're indifferent about it. Since you're not going to do hardcore, that's fine. But it's something I definitely want to hear more about, and, you know, from the players, and also maybe get Blizzard's response at some point from that. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in every week. I truly appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time.